Nell Hart counted the broken plate shards under the kitchen table while the last maid's footsteps faded down the porch. Her father tapped twice from the bedroom, which meant water, and the fry pan still held cold beans. She left the shards where they lay, carried the tin cup to the bedroom, and held it while he drank. His left hand shook, but he got the cup to his mouth. The right hand had not moved in 8 weeks. Nell took the cup back and set it on the crate beside the bed. The house had gone quiet, except for the sound of a hinge moving in the wind. Hattie had dropped the plate at breakfast. Nell had not raised her voice. She had only wiped the smear of beans from the floor and asked Hattie to scald the dishwater one more time before she fed the chickens. Hattie stood with her hands pressed flat against her apron and said, "I won't be scolded for a cracked plate. I won't." Then she left her bedroll on the porch and walked down the wagon track without collecting the $2 Nell owed her. Nell swept the shards into the dustpan with the side of her hand. Her father tapped once. The medicine bottle on the windowsill had maybe 3 spoonfuls left. The cows would need water by noon. Cole's new fence ran along the north road, close enough to see from the porch in the morning light, and the spring that watered the south pasture was on the wrong side of his wire. Nell had not yet told her father about the fence. The tap came again, slower. Nell went back to the bedroom. His eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling. She said, "Water's gone. You wait. I'm going to check the cows." He did not answer with a tap. She pulled the quilt up over his chest and left the bedroom door open so the air could move. The rifle stood by the kitchen door. She took it, though her hands were still dusted with bean paste and powdered stoneware. The boy came up from Tombstone on a mule that was too thin for the slope. Nell was in the corral when she saw him, checking the black mare's front shoe. She walked to the gate and waited. The boy handed her a folded paper sealed with red wax. "Mr. Latham at the bank says 3 weeks, the boy said. He says the note is due in full. Nell took the paper. The boy waited. She took a nickel from her pocket and gave it to him. He turned the mule and went back down the road. The letter was short. The bank required payment of $240 in 21 days. Laid against the note were the ranch, the cattle, the house, the spring, and 40 acres of winter pasture. Cole's water rights claim appeared in a second paragraph, noted as a dispute. The bank had been informed. The bank took note. A buyer at Benson would accept cattle on the hoof at the railhead. The letter did not say how Nell was supposed to reach Benson. Nell read the letter twice. Her father's medicine bottle held a brown liquid now the color of weak tea. The trip to Tombstone for more would take most of a day she did not have. The north road was fenced with new wire, the barbs bright as fishhooks in the sun. Cole had cut the direct trail to Benson, the only route with water. The long way went east, then north, through a dry stretch the cattle would not survive unless a storm filled the steel tanks. There had been no storm in 6 weeks. Nell folded the letter and put it in her apron pocket. She walked to the north boundary and stood at the new fence. The wire was 4 strands high, stretched tight, and the posts were set in fresh dirt. A sign hung from the top strand. "No water. Keep clear." The spring was on Nell's side of the wire, but the trail to the spring road was on Cole's. A cow could drink in the south pasture. A herd moving north could not. That was the whole thing, in 4 strands of wire. The woman came at dusk, leading a mule packed with 2 saddlebags and a coil of rope. Nell was in the corral again, trying to push a stray steer back toward the holding pen. The steer kept hooking left and braking for the open gate. Nell had been at it an hour. The woman watched from the fence without speaking. Then she walked into the corral, tied her mule to a post, and uncoiled the rope. She took the steer's turn, stepped inside the swing, and laid the loop over the horns. The steer stopped. The woman led it to the pen and closed the gate. Nell stopped walking. The woman coiled the rope and hung it over the saddle horn. She had dark hair pulled back under a straw hat and wore a canvas coat too heavy for the season. Her hands were cracked and brown. "You need a second rider," she said. "The maid's job is filled," Nell said. "I don't do housework." The woman pointed at the corral. "The job that is not filled is out there. You need someone who can rope and ride. I can do both." Nell looked at the steer, standing tame inside the pen. "I can't pay wages, not now." "Then cattle pay," the woman said. "I'll take a percentage of what the herd brings at Benson." She turned and looked north, where the wire caught the last light. "Cole has fenced the spring road, but there's a way through the wash east of here. He hasn't run wire across the cut bank yet. The banks are steep, but the bed is wide enough for the herd to walk single file. If it floods, it floods. But a flood leaves the ground wet for 3 days after, and the cattle can drink from the pools. That's the only open route." Nell did not ask how the woman knew the country. The crack in the wash might be the difference between living and losing everything. "Who are you?" "Rosa Delgado." Nell looked at the rope, the mule, the woman's smooth way with a nervous steer. "What do you want from me exactly?" "Half the profit, 1 drive. I need to bring my son from Tucson before the month ends. He's been waiting with his aunt. I need enough money to pay his passage. Cattle pay, not wages." Nell did not answer. She walked back to the house, and Rosa followed. The kitchen was cold. Nell took the bank letter from her apron pocket and laid it on the table. Rosa unstrapped her saddlebag and removed a folded claim file. She opened it flat. The top sheet bore a red foreclosure stamp from the same bank in Tombstone. The date was 5 days old. Rosa's name was printed at the top of the ledger line, and beside it a small ranch mortgage. The bank had taken the claim on Rosa's own small place, half a watershed away. The second page was a railway receipt for a child's passage, prepaid from Tucson to Benson. The third was a letter from a woman named Ana Delgado, Rosa's sister, in Tucson. It said the boy, Daniel, was eating well but had grown out of his shoes, and the school could not keep him without the final term payment. Nell read it twice. Rosa said, "I don't show that to win pity. I show it so you know I will not quit. If I don't bring the herd through, I don't get my son back. That's not a promise. That's the same bank that owns your note." Nell looked at the claim file. The red stamp said the bank would take any cattle Rosa owned. The black mare stood in the corral, her lead rope hanging from the fence. Nell could picture the drive alone, the herd scattered by dry water, Cole's wire cutting across the road, the bank taking the place in 3 weeks. She could also picture Rosa riding ahead, taking the first turn into the wash. "You want half," Nell said. "Half the profit. If there is no profit, I get nothing. But the herd has to move, and you can't be here with your father and there with the herd at the same time." Nell's father tapped from the bedroom. Once, then again. Water. She would have to leave him with a neighbor, or hire a boy from town, or risk the drive and hope the fever did not return. The medicine bottle was nearly empty. The note was 3 weeks out. Rosa knew how to cross the wash. Nell walked to the fence and took the black mare's lead rope. She held it out. "Half the profit, and you ride ahead. If the wash floods, we both drown." Rosa took the rope. "We leave at dark. The cattle move easier in the cool." They moved the herd at dark, the cattle walking nose to tail down the long slope toward the wash. Nell rode drag, pushing the last cows forward, while Rosa went ahead with a lantern unlit in her hand. The sky behind the dragoons had turned the color of old copper, then green, the green that comes before a hard storm in the high desert. The air smelled of wet rock, though no rain had fallen. The wash cut through the flat ground like a crack in a dry pot. The banks were 6 feet high where they entered, dirt and root and stone, and the cattle balked at the edge until Rosa took the black mare down the first step and the led cow followed. The herd went in single file, hooves clicking on the gravel, dust rising and settling. Nell counted as they passed the narrow gap. 1 short. A calf, probably the same steer she had chased in the corral, had stopped at the cut bank. Rosa rode back. The calf's gone to the left side. I'll get it. She turned the mare and went up the bank. Nell stayed with the herd, keeping them moving forward. The green sky pressed down. Then the rain started, not a sheet, but a hard, sudden fall that turned the washbed slick. The water rose to the horses' fetlocks in less than an hour. Rosa came back leading the calf by a rope around its neck, but the calf was limping. They had gone maybe 200 yards when the calf stopped and bellowed. Its right foreleg was wedged under a root that grew out of the cut bank. The leg twisted at the fetlock. The rain kept falling. The water came up past the horse's hooves, then up the calf's hock. "The leg's broken," Rosa said. She had to shout over the water. "Or near enough. We can't pull him free without killing him, and the herd won't wait." She pointed ahead to a rock shelf, high on the right side, where the bank jutted out and formed a narrow, dry ledge. One dry shelf. That's the only spot before the next bend. The herd has to reach it before the full rush comes. If we stay, the cows behind will pile into us, and we'll lose more than a calf. Nell looked at the calf. It had stopped fighting. The water was at its belly. She could cut the rope and leave it. The count at Benson would be short by one, or she could stay and lose the herd. The bank letter was folded in her pocket, wet now, bleeding ink through the fabric. "Ride ahead," Nell said. "Take them to the shelf." Rosa did not argue. She turned the mare and went up the wash, pushing the led cows forward. Nell cut the rope. The calf did not run. She did not look back until the wash curved around a bend and the animal was out of sight. They reached Benson after midnight, the herd stringing out behind them on the last stretch of wet ground. The rain had stopped past the wash, but the cattle were still soaked, their hides steaming in the cool air. The depot corrals stood at the north end of town, ringed by lamps burning low in their glass chimneys. A nightman in a yellow slicker opened the gate. He counted the cattle as they filed in, marking each one with a piece of chalk on the gate rail. The buyer came out of the hotel in his boots and coat, carrying a ledger and a stub of pencil. He walked the corral, counting out loud, then wrote a figure on the ledger page and tore the sales slip. 89, he said. "I counted 90 at the holding pen. One's missing." He held out the slip. The number was $220. The note was $240. Nell looked at the slip. The ink had not dried. "The wash took a calf," Rosa said. "The leg broke." The buyer shook his head. 90 was the count at the pen. "I'm paying for what's in the corral. $20 short." He handed the slip to Nell. She took it. The paper was wet where her fingers touched it. Nell went to the bank agent's window at the depot office. The agent sat behind a barred opening, his lamp turned low. He read the note, then the sales slip. $20 short, he said. "Cole's wire made an offer on the whole place this afternoon. He must know the water was against you." The agent waited. Nell did not speak. The agent slid the sales slip back across the counter. "The bank will want the difference. You have until close of business Friday." Nell walked out onto the platform. Rosa was waiting by the corral gate, her mule's lead rope in her hand. The sky had cleared and the stars were sharp. Nell's father's medicine bottle was empty in her pocket. She had left that part out. The medicine would cost $2 at the Tombstone apothecary. The note needed 20 more than the sale had brought. She had nothing left to sell except what was in the house. Her mother's silver coffee service stood in the dining room sideboard. Nell knew exactly what it was worth. They rode back to the ranch through the pale morning, the herd gone from the hills. The house was quiet. Nell's father tapped once when she came into the bedroom, then stopped. She gave him water from the well and counted the spoons of medicine left. 3. She would go to Tombstone that afternoon. First, she unlocked the sideboard and took out the silver coffee service, the pot, the creamer, the sugar bowl, and the tray. Her mother had polished them every Sunday before the fever took her. The silver had not been used since. Nell wrapped the pieces in a flour sack and carried them to town. A depot buyer in Benson, the same man who took the herd, paid $22 after weighing the pieces on a small brass scale. He did not ask where they came from. Nell put the money with the sales slip and paid the note at the bank window. The agent stamped the note paid and returned the deed to her hands. Then she found Rosa at the corral, rubbing the mule with a piece of burlap. Nell held out the deed. "I can't pay you half of nothing. The sale covered the note and a little more. I want you to stay. A quarter interest in the ranch. You keep riding, and we run what's left together. Next spring, if the herd calves, you'll see money. If not, you'll have a place to bring your son." Rosa took the deed, read it, and folded it into her canvas coat. "I'll stay." The wind moved across the empty corral. Inside the house, Nell's father tapped twice for water, then was still for an hour. Then he tapped once more, slower.